What's up, family? It's your boy King L Bay dropping this knowledge on you all day. Just gonna drop some science on y'all today, right? So, today we're gonna talk about the difference between constitutional creatures and congressional creatures, and understanding the term public and private don't mix because the law is very specific. People got to give you specific information in regards to public and private. And you got to understand public corporations and private and government work together. It's called a PPP. This is where the PPP loans came in at, right? So you need to understand this. So let's talk about the PPPs so y'all can get it. It said private companies can work directly with government. This is often done through public private partnerships, which involve collaboration between a government agency and a private sector company to finance, build, and operate projects such as public transportation networks, parks, and convention centers. PPPs are often quite effective as they allow both the government and private sectors to leverage each other strengths and resources to accomplish a fair and rational balance between their respective goals. So, what y'all got to understand, right? A constitutional creature, right? Constitutional legislation. So, we're going to go into the Bill of Rights. The Bills of Rights were constitutional legislated, it wasn't congressional legislated. The Constitution, the Congress adopted, the states adopted those bills of rights. They can't get out of that. They can't get out of that. It was not, I want y'all to want to repeat, it was not legislated by Congress. This is the Constitution, first Bill of Rights, the first bills of right, or the first legislation was performed by Congress, right? When dealing with the United States. I want you to understand that so that y'all can understand the difference between statutory authority and constitutional authority. So y'all can stop mixing public and private and start understanding the specific things that you need to identify when dealing with these things. And as you be able to understand this on a domestic level, you will be able to rationalize this on an international scale because now you will have the insight, the wherewithal, everything that you need to be able to break this up on an international phase by understanding and following the paper trail to know what is what and learn the language and then be able to be very specific on everybody role on the contract because that's what it boils down to. So let's get in understanding a constitutional creature. So I want you to understand that a First Amendment church, a lot of y'all like using the Illinois, right, Religious Corporation Act. That is a statutory authority created by Illinois General Assembly. Illinois got jurisdiction over that. I want you to understand a constitutional church, right, is under the legislation authority of the Constitution, not of Congress. Got nothing to do with Congress. It got nothing to do with the states. The states have even adopted this, right? So when y'all keep talking about when all you got to do is create a church, if y'all gonna stay in the United States of America, right? Because I'm moving on and I'm devoting myself to the empire, right? I'm moving on to the international phase because I already broke this all the way down. So let's get into the constitutional portion of this. And now let me share my screen because I want to do this video so I can share my screen with my family, right? Because I'm gonna post this up. So let me share my screen, right? I want you to look at the preamble of the preamble to the Bill of Rights. Most of y'all don't even read the preamble, right? And it says, the convention of the numbers of the states having at the time of their adopting the Constitution express a desire. So I want you to understand the convention of the number of states having at the time of their adopting the Constitution. So the states adopted this Constitution. Even though they got their own, they still adopted this. So you got to remember these Bill of Rights are state bound, right, and federal bound. They're binding on the states as well as the federal government. They recognize this document. So when you go to the banks and they telling you, now you got to, now they recognize this document. The language have to be respect. You can sue them for not recognizing you because they ain't got no choice. When they trying to make you into a resident of the state and all of that, you can, this is a constitutional order. This is constitution. So we're going to break this down. So I just want you to see this, but I ain't going to go deep. So it says the convention of the number of the states having at the time they're adopting the Constitution express a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its power. The further declaration and restrictive clause should be added. And as extending the grounds of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. Resolved by the Senate and House of the Representatives of the United States of America. So listen, I want you to understand the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress. I want you to understand this. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, they are in Congress assembled. So the Senate and the House of Representatives are in the United, or a part of representatives of the United States of America, but they are in Congress, meaning they're within the corporation, right? So the House of Representatives and the Senate are a part of the United States of America, right? Which then went into the congressional order of the corporation. They're part of the corporation. 2/3 of both houses concurring the following articles be proposed the legislation of the several states. Here's the states again. They're adopting this as amendment to the Constitution of the United States. As amendment, see, they make a distinction. So you got the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the House of Representatives of the United States. They are in Congress. I want y'all to understand. They are in it. So the corporation was made, and these representatives from the United States of America came into Congress. I want y'all to understand that, because the Senate and the House of Representatives are representatives of the United States of America. I want y'all to understand that. This is what it's saying. I didn't make this up. The following articles be proposed to the legislation of the several states as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which article, when ratified by 3/4 of said legislator, be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the said constitutional viz. Right? Articles in addition to amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America proposed by Congress and ratified by the legislation of the several states pursuant to the fifth articles of the original Constitution. So I want y'all to understand this, right? Y'all need to understand the preamble. So we're going to talk about the constitutional church, right? So they put a prohibition. This is the Bill of Rights. This is not a congressional, this is a constitutional legislation. This is not a congressional legislation. This is a constitutional, because the Constitution created these bills of rights. The Constitution, not Congress. This is outside of the scope of Congress. Now, this is what they tell to Congress. They say Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment. So with that word respect, you got to look that up in Black's laws and its interpretation. It means they cannot injure any religious establishment or prohibit the free exercise thereof or abridge. So Congress can't restrict a church right to contract, right? So this is why church and state is separate, because everything on the statutory side created by Congress is doing banking. That's why, that's the difference. They are doing banking. The public trust is doing banking. This is why church and state is separate, because of the intents of purposes of both. One is intentionally designed to do banking. All LLCs and all corporations are doing banking. So this is why you have a tax lien on all of these things. This is why everything is leaned up. Right? I need y'all to understand the distinction between statutory authority and constitutional authority. And don't mix the two. Don't mix them two, right? Because Congress got its Article 1 jurisdiction. This is the Bill of Rights based on the constitutional jurisdiction. So Article 1's, right, that's another code. That's a Article 1, codified jurisdiction. Statutory codes, everything is codified. So everything is written in code to direct you to the source of law who created the code. The United States codes are created by Congress. The Ohio Revised Codes are created by a creature of Congress called the General Assembly, which is what? Right? That's another code in which they create. Right? The CFRs, right, is created by the executive branch. They control those codes. That's why all crimes are commercial according to the executive branch. Right? They're making you and identifying you as a part of the executive agency, right? So they're hitting you with commercial crimes. They're identifying you as a congressional agency, not a congressional, executive agencies, right? Because the CFR say all crimes are commercial. See, Congress is not bringing you in court. The executive branch is bringing you in court. When you go before Congress, they have a congressional committee, and they're congressmen, and they have to answer, right, on the Article 1, right? But when you're dealing with the executive branch, the largest body of government, they bring you into these Article 1 courts, right? And they hit you with these commercial crimes, and they classify you as some type of executive agency, right? This is the stuff you have to, everything is very specific in nature. Law is very specific and absolute. So when you look at these things, you got to understand, what are you doing, right? So what has happened is Congress and the executive branch, they're intertwining. So you have misconstrued their article, because there's an Article 1 and Article 2 jurisdiction acting together, posing as an Article 3. It'll give you that they're acting as a Article 3 jurisdiction, and they're not. Really, they are Article 1 and Article 2 jurisdiction working together under contract, right? The executive branch, right, is bringing you under the executive. So what you got to understand is all of these agencies that you see is executive agencies, right? And what did they do, right? What did they do? Through legislation, right? They created these instruments, right? That's then doing what? Given to the executive branch to do what? Control it. They're held in trust by the executive branch. This is what y'all got to understand. So the executive branch is bringing you in under this. This is why they're charging you with interstate and intrastate commerce. Because if you look at it, and I'm gonna show y'all in the diagram of the United States, I'm gonna show you that the executive branch control the larger part of everything in government, like the FBI, the CIA. All of those are private institutions. It's a lot of private institutions that contract with government that's acting on government policies. Um, then you have the other branches of the executive branch, and those when you see the word department, those are all created through the executive branch. And when you don't see department, those are private institutions that contracted with government. Those are private institutions that work on the behalf of government. Y'all need to understand these things in its development to understand what's going on. So you got the Department of Commerce, the Department of Transportation, all your departments, right? Those are directly extended or creations of the executive branch. And like a lot of your other agencies that you associate with, those are private institutions that contracted with government and working on the behalf of government. That's what y'all got to understand, right? So you got to understand these things in totality, right? So you can understand what's going on, right? So this is this is not a congressional, this is a constitutional legislation. You got to be able to follow this. And the states have adopted these things, and now these are a part of the state's constitution. The states, this is the first primary source of constitutional rights. These Bill of Rights are a part of the constitution of every state. So they can't get around this, right? So when we're talking about a constitutional church, this is not a 508 or 501c1a or any of the 501s, right? This is a constitutional church that has religious rights. And we was talking about Social Security not recognizing, everybody gonna recognize religious documents. I don't care. The bank's supposed to recognize it. They all. Here's the issue that I'm gonna break it down for y'all. What y'all got to do with your affidavits. Let me tell y'all what y'all need to do when you want the banks, state and federal, You have to get them authenticated. What do I mean your affidavits being authenticated? So a lot of y'all got this thing in your scope of your mind that authentication means something, authenticating a birth certificate. Man, that is some hogwash. Your mama can authenticate the birth certificate. This how silly y'all is. Authentication, all that mean is the two parties, right? If I'm a two parties of a contract or other parties of a contract, they can verify what they did, if they signed it or not, their signature, saying that they're a party to the contract. That's authentication. Y'all going like, oh, the authentication, the aspartame. Man, y'all be killing me with this stuff because y'all not litigators. So all of this stuff sounds good to y'all when you don't understand how to use these tools of evidence. I'm a litigator, so I know how to break down. I'm a sharp shooter. When I break this stuff down, I'm shooting at it real sharp. So let me continue on this and break this down for y'all, right? This is what I do. This is what King Elbe do. So a constitutional church, when you get your church established and you get it authenticated, right? And what I mean, you get the notary to attest. You can get it. You got listen. You got the notary acknowledgement, attestation, and the notary protest. You got there's three different things in there, right? A notary acknowledgement and a notary attestation and a notary uh, uh, protest. Those are three different aspects of different performances of a notary. So when you get a notary to attest to some facts in there, you get the notary to attest to some facts, and you get the notary to acknowledge what's going on in the document. You got to understand these are two different things. A notary attestation is not a notary acknowledgement. They're not the same. They're not one and the same. That's why they're called two different things. So once you get those different things, you get certain things done under that. Then you get it sent to the state. Listen to what I'm saying. The state is going to then do what? Authenticate that it's a true notary. Now it's recognized. The state is going to recognize. Everybody got to recognize it. Now it's a state document. You send it out to the federal government and get it authenticated. Now that's a federal document. It has the seals on there. So now when you go into the bank can tell you, nah, we can't accept this. It's recognized by the state and federal government that this notary is a true notary and that this notary, right, is recognized by the federal and state governments, right? So ain't no bank should be denying you to open up no bank account. You understand what I'm saying? Because they recognize, I want you to understand, this is constitutional authority, right? So when we look at this word respecting, I want you to understand this is dealing with injury. They can't injure you. They don't have the right to injure you, right? So we'll get into some other stuff when I talk about the ultimate plan. It's estate planning. A lot of y'all don't know what y'all doing. I look at y'all UCC filings, they're trash. And I'm going to just tell you like that. It's a lot of people, UCC filings is just garbage. It's just straight garbage. It's strictly garbage, right? It's garbage. It's trash. I be looking at y'all documents, they're garbage. I'm gonna tell you straight up. All this. So let's go to the Fourth Amendment. Now we're gonna talk about security agreements. This is your first security agreement. This is congressional. This is not congressional, I'm sorry. UCCs has been adopted. That's by a private organization, right? Written the UCCs. I want you to understand this. Written the UCCs. I want you to understand this. The UCCs is written by a private institution that then does what? The states adopt the UCCs. This is what I want y'all to understand, right? The states adopt them. Now, let's get into your first security agreement that is constitutionally legislated, right? Because a lot of y'all don't understand this, right? This is why I say you don't necessarily need a UCC, because a lot of people do not use the UCCs, they use contracts. This is what I'm saying to you. Let me say this to you again. Let me say this to y'all about the UCCs. It's not a necessary component, but it's good. I'm not going to say you can't use it, because the UCCs is done with banking, right? This is all banking, right? This is done through banking. I mean, I got to break this down for y'all. A lot of y'all don't know how to set your estates up and plan it all the way out. You have what we call an ancestral state. The United States or the Moroccan states is an ancestral states, and it can't be defeated because you have the right. This is why I talk about estate planning. Look up absolute estate and look up ancestral estate. Look these things up. This is why I don't talk about no secure party creditor. I don't talk about no no status correction. That stuff is made up. It sound good. It sound good. It's really sound good. I mean, the secure party is a process within the estate planning. A creditor is a process. You're talking about debtor and creditor relationships. I told you everything is about a relationship. I've been telling you that it's about creating relations, right? So you got private entities, right, dealing with public entities. So public and private. So a church, a constitutional church, can then be a private person that deals with a public church, which is a public person, because they both created under two different sources of law, right? And then they could create a relationship. How do you create the relationship? Through contract, just like nations do it through treaties. Y'all don't understand this. This is why y'all like listening to people that can't go into court and can't get a remedy. They're going to tell you all this stuff. I mean, I'm going to court. Man, I'm a sharp shooter. I am a sharp shooter, right? When I go into court, I'm breaking all this stuff down. I already know what I'm doing. So let's go, right? Amendments. So let's go here. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure. Hold on, let me. The right of the people to be secure in their persons. So it says secure in their persons. So a church is a person, right? Constitutionally, either constitutionally legislated or statutory legislated. These are persons. You have a right to be secure in those persons. In the houses, like they have the House of Representatives. So you can have the House of Church Representatives. I mean, I'm giving out too much game. The church's papers, right? The church's effects, right? You have a right to be secure in that. And it says against unreasonable searches, right? It has to be reasonable. They got to have reason why they doing everything. It can't be unreasonable, right? So when we talk about contract law, right, this is where you got your confidentiality agreements and all of that. Because if all of this stuff is confidential, what is your reason why you want to know my trade secrets? You want to know me to break if I got a a vow of uh, a oath of silence, right? 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 I got a vow of certain things, right? I got a vow of what I have a what they what I got it's not a vow of silence. Well, you get the point. It's I can't think of it. I get the certificates, but we have a you take a oath of secrecy, a vow of secrecy, right? You take a vow of secrecy, right? That you can't talk, right? You got a vow of secrecy. So if you have a vow of secrecy, then they have to have reason to believe that you breached the public trust, right? And they have to charge you with a crime. They can't just say you done something. You have a right of secrecy. And it says unreasonable searches and seizures. So they can't take your property. Shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation. So it got to be an oath or affirmation. That means they got to come under some particular affidavit, right? Describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. So this is your first security agreement when we're dealing with this. So it's not necessary for the UCCs. They just created this. Let me tell you how these people think. These people are very creative in their understanding of language and words, right? So you guys got to understand how this stuff works in totality. And this is the difference between me and other people. I understand how this stuff works. I pay attention to the language, the distinction, because I learned that law is very specific, right? If you don't know how to write and specifically put your things in proper context, right? And make it very clear where it's not vague, you ain't gonna understand. They're not gonna accept your documents like you think, because you don't know what you're doing, right? So when we talk about taking a property, so it says describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, right? So this is a due process requirement, right? They got so if they take property, right, or they take you, this is why I try to tell you, right, about why are you in court, right? If you understand, right, that you have a House of Representatives, right, and they seize your person, right? Let's say they pull you out the car, right? This, that, and the third for drunk driving. They say for drunk driving, right? Boom, 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 right? You got to understand how this works. And I'm gonna end it at that note, okay? And then I want you to understand the Fifth Amendment, right? Because I ain't gonna give y'all all the game. Show you how contracts work. We deal in contract law. Contract make the law. I'm gonna show you how, if you're gonna do this, I'm gonna show you how to properly file your UCCs. I'm gonna show you how to properly use your constitutional church. I'm gonna show you how to put your papers in effects in trust and secure the rights and interests in the property. And I'm gonna show you how to contract everything out. I'm gonna show you how to utilize this stuff in a proper representation of facts through material facts called contracts, right? No person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crimes. So, what is capital, right? Or otherwise. So, can we construe that Federal Reserve notes can be capital? Is this mean capital punishment? Is that just is that word all inclusive? So we got to understand in relationship, if all crimes are commercial, I didn't make this up. If all crimes are commercial, even murder is commercial, it's capital. It says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. Infamous, right? Unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. So it has to be in the form of a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in land or naval forces or in the militia when the actual service of time of war and public danger. So this is where they're getting y'all at, and I'm gonna show you where this breaking this down, right? So a lot of y'all are in y'all states or a part of the militia. So let's break this down real quick. All of you guys are in the selective service. A lot of us are in the selective service. So that's a contract, right? So by you being in the selective service, this is what happens. This is what happens, y'all. You become an extension of the executive branch because they deal in the military, right? These are things that you need to identify by constitutional principles. So this is how they pulling you into the jurisdiction. These are things that you must identify. So I'm gonna end right here. I'll probably do a part 2 to this and break this down, but I want y'all to understand this component. I'm cutting it off abruptly. I'm doing this intention so y'all can come back and listen and call me up. Hit your boy King L Bay. Hit me up on Facebook. Let me keep dropping these jewels and busting your head, Fred. Peace and love to everybody. I'm out.